We continue now at the top of Daf Chav Ches Amud Aleph from Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Bava Kamma Daf 28a. On the previous summer, there was a machlokas Rav Nachman and Rav Yehuda whether Ovid inish dina lenafshe, whether a person can take the law into his own hands. Rav Nachman says a person can take the law into his own hands, and Rav Yehuda says a person cannot take the law into his own hands. And the Gemara asks from a brisa, because the brisa seems to say, according to Ben Bagbag, that you could take the law into your own hands. And Rav Yehuda now responds to that question from the brisa, imcha, you can keep that with you. As Rashi explains, imcha bitmiya. First explanation of Rashi is imcha, should it be with you? Kolomar v'chi nira be'inecha, shetchuva zu hogenesi. Do you really think this is a good refutation of me? Lishnachrin, another way of understanding imcha tehei teshuva zu. Keep this refutation with yourself. She'ena klum, it's nothing. Why is it nothing? Ben Bagbag yechidahu, because Ben Bagbag is just a minority opinion. Upligi Rabbanan aleh, and the Rabbanan argue with Ben Bagbag. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yanai says a different answer to the question of Rav Kahana against Rav Yehuda. Mai shavor shinav, when the Brisa says, Ben Bagbag says, go and break his teeth and take the law into your own hands. Badin, that just means break his teeth in the court. You should take him to court. It does not mean that he's taking the law into his own hands. It has nothing to do with the issue between Rav Yehuda and Rav Nachman. The Brisa is not saying to take the law into your own hands. The Gemara says, Yihachi, if so, but if that's the case, the emor lo, it shouldn't say to say to him, the omrim lo mi boile. It should have said that they say to him in the court. And shaliani notel, it shouldn't say that I am taking what is mine. Shalohu notel, if the court is the one speaking, it should say he is taking what is his. Mi boile, that's what it should have said in the Brisa. So Rav Yanai's answer does not fit with the grammar of the Brisa itself. And the Gemara says to that kasha, the Gemara says, indeed, that is difficult. It is a difficulty with Rav Yanai's answer. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here a proof from the following Brisa again to this issue of whether a person can take the law into his own hands. Shor she'ola gabi chaver, the Brisa says, if you have one ox goes on top of another ox, lahargo, in order to kill it, uba bal hatachton v'shamat eshalo, and then the person who owns the ox that's on the bottom comes and he slips it out, v'nafal elyon v'meson, so then the upper shore falls down and dies. Pater, so the halacha is that this Bal HaTachton, who essentially caused the shore on top to die, is Pater. And the Gemara says, my lav, is it not? But muad, we're talking about a situation where the animal that's attacking is a muad. Delek upseda, so there really is no loss for the owner of the lower ox, because he's going to be paid back in court, because it's a muad. A muad pays nezek shalim. And therefore, there's no loss of money. Again, we said in the previous Amud, everybody agrees if there's a loss of money, you can take the law into your own hands. But here, there's no loss of money. And still it's saying he's allowed to take the law into his own hands. He's allowed to slip the animal out from underneath and cause the death of the upper animal. This seems to be a proof to Rav Nachman against Rav Yehuda. And the Gemara says, lo, no, betam. It could be this Brisa is talking about a tam, where it was only chatzi nezek, so the ikap say that there really would have been a loss of money. There, everybody agrees, of it inish dina lenafshe, a person can take the law into his own hands. The Gemara says, Ihachi, but if so, a maseifa, let's look at the end of that very same Brisa. The end of the Brisa says, Dachfu le'elyon v'meis, if the person who owns the shore on the bottom pushes the one on top and causes it to die, so chayiv, so in that case he's chayiv. And the Gemara says, v'i betam, now if we're talking about a situation of a tam, again where it's chatzi nezek, amai chayiv. Why is he chayiv in that situation? Again, we're talking about a loss of money. Certainly he's allowed to take the law into his own hands. And the Gemara says to that, no, shahayalo l'shamto v'lo shamto, even so, even if he was allowed to do that, but this is a situation where he could have done it in a less dangerous fashion. He could have slipped his animal out from the bottom. By pushing the one on top, he's acting in a more aggressive manner, and that's why he's chayiv. And Tosas explained, v'i betam amai chayiv. Again, the Gemara asked on the seif of the Brisa, if the Brisa is talking about a tam, why should he be chayiv when he pushes off the one on the top? B'shlami yari b'muad. Now, it would have made sense if we said the whole Brisa is talking about a muad, and there's no loss of money, so yesh lo le'his chayiv. So then it actually makes sense that he would be chayiv for pushing the animal instead of slipping out his animal from underneath. She'eno bol v'hayalo l'shamto, because there, he's not in a situation of panic, because he knows he's not going to lose any money, and so he should have done the proper thing and slipped out his animal from underneath. Avol i betam ayri, but if we're talking about a tam, where there's a real loss of money for him, so lo salka daitach shayalo l'shamto, so there, nobody would think that he has to slip it out from underneath. Lefi shu bol, because he's in a panic. Sheyari lahafsi, he doesn't want to lose money. V'lo masaka daitach l'shamto, he's not thinking about what he should do, and therefore it would have made sense to make such a distinction by a muad and to say that you shouldn't push it from the top. By tam, initially the Gemara says that distinction doesn't make sense because the person is bohol, the person is in a panic. But then the Gemara says no, even by a tam, the person should have realized it's better to slip his animal out from underneath rather than push the animal that's on top. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here, another proof from a Brisa. This is going to be a proof as well to the position of Rav Nachman, that a person can take the law into his own hands. If a person fills up the courtyard of his friends with jugs of wine and jugs of oil, the person who owns the chutzner can break things as he leaves, he can break things as he enters. And so you see from here that a person can take the law into his own hands. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Mishaber v'yotze lebezdin. He's allowed to break stuff as he goes out to court. Mishaber v'nichnas l'havi zechu Yosef. He can break stuff as he enters to bring in proof of his side, and therefore it's not really saying he can take the law into his own hands, but if he needs to do this to get to Bezdin, in that limited extent, of course he can do that, but really he does have to go to court. That is how Rav Yehuda would defend himself from this brisa. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here, another proof from a brisa, Minayin l'nirtza shekalu lo yamav, v'rabu misarhev bo lotzes. From where do we know? Let's say you have a nirtza, that's an eved, talking about an eved ivri who had his ear pierced and he's staying until Yovel, and now the Yovel comes, it's time for him to leave the house of his master, and his master is pushing him to leave, he wants him to leave, v'chaval v'yasa bo chabura, and then while he's trying to get him out of the house, he ends up wounding him. Shu pater, how do we know he's pater? Talmud Lomer, because the pasuk says, lo sikhu kofer lashuv, means to say, lo sikhu kofer lashuv. Person's not supposed to take kofer, you don't have to make that kind of a payment in a situation where you're trying to get a person out from being an eved out of the house. And so here you also seem to have a situation where the person is taking the law into his own hands. Instead of going to court and having the court say that the eved has to leave the property, the person is physically taking his eved ivri out of his property. It seems to be a proof to Rav Nachman again. And the Gemara says, no, hachav b'mayaskin, and here what are we talking about? Bi'avda ganva, we're talking about an eved that's also a thief. And so therefore it is a loss of money. Everybody would agree you could take the law into your own hands. The Gemara says, 1 second, Adho idna lo ganav, until now he's been an eved ivri all this time, he never stole. V'hashta ganav, and now all of a sudden he's a ganav. And the Gemara explains, Ado idna have a aimse derabi Allah. Until now, he was afraid of his master because he was an eved. Hashta lesle aimse derabi Allah. But here, at this point in time, when he's going free, he's not afraid of his master. So there is a concern he's going to steal. It's considered a possible loss of money. And the Gemara continues, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says a different answer to this brisa. Be'eved shemasar lo rabo shifcha kananis. We're talking about an eved, when he's an eved ivri, he's allowed to marry a shifcha kananis in order to have children for the master. But at this point in time, he's free, he's not allowed to be with the shifcha kananis. So therefore, adho idna hetera v'hashte isura, until now it was mutter to be with the shifcha, but now it's usher to be with the shifcha, and so therefore in such a situation, it is okay for the master to physically get the eved out of the house. And Rashi explains, Lo sichu kofer lashuv v'gomer. Now the simple context of the pasuk is talking about the fact that a person is not allowed to pay a ransom in order to get out of going to the Ir Miklat, but instead, we're darshaning the pasuk as follows, Lashav, L'misharotza lashuv l'kelkulo, somebody who wants to return to his lowly state, V'lios evident to be an eved, for that you're not allowed to do, you can push him out of the house, Lishnachrina lashav, L'mishadino lio, shav al-mishbachto, or Lashav could mean for somebody who's supposed to be returning to his family, again, he's not supposed to be an eved, Ve'eno rots, and he doesn't want, so again, in those situations, you can physically force him, and Lo sichu l'tzarcho shum mamon, you don't take any money in that situation, therefore he's potter, he doesn't have to pay if he wounds him on the way out. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here the following proof from our Mishnah to this issue of whether a person can take the law into his own hands. If somebody puts the jug in Rosh Hashanah, and then somebody else comes and trips over it, and he breaks it, potter, so that person is potter. So the Gemara says, but the only reason is because he stumbled on it. But let's say he would actually break it on purpose, he would be chayiv. And the proof over here of the Gemara is on the assumption, we had the opinion of Rav, that the case over here is that the person actually filled up the entire Rosh Hashanah with his barrels. And so in such a situation, why don't we say Ovid Inish, Dino Lanafshe, he's allowed to take matters into his own hands, and he's allowed to break it. So therefore it seems to be a proof that you're not allowed to take matters into your own hands. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Zvid Mishmei de Rava. Rav Zvid says in the name of Rava, Hu Adin Afilu Shavra. It could be that even if actually he broke it, he would be potter. V'haida Katani Niskal. And the only reason why we talk about the fact that he's stumbling over it, Aidi Tekaboy Lemisni Seifa, that's because of what we're going to teach at the end of the Mishnah. Im Huzak Balachaves Chayev Benisko. It says that if he gets damaged, so then the person who owns the barrel has to pay for his damage. That's the Daf Kaniskal. That's only if he stumbles over it and gets hurt. Avol Shavar Lo. But if he's breaking it and he hurts himself, then the owner of the Chavis does not have to pay Duazik Nafshe, because he's the one that caused the damage to himself, and that's why Katani Reisha Niskal, it could be that's the reason why in the Reish in the beginning of the Mishnah it says that he stumbled over it, but it could be that even if he breaks it actively, he is going to be potter. And Rashi says, Hashiv Rachayev, again, if he would actively break it, the implication from the Mishnah is he'd be Chayev, Ukma Rav Le'el, and as we said, Rav Rav says earlier, the case is that the whole Rosh Hashanah is filled with his barrels. Apparently a person is not allowed to take matters into his own hands. Even though this represents a situation where there could be a loss of money, because it says again, in such a situation he'd be chayiv, the Gemara in the end says, no, it's not true, he wouldn't be chayiv even if he actively breaks it. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here the following proof. Katso says kappa, the pasuk says that you cut off her hand. This again is talking about when the woman grabs the man by the genitals, and the Brisa says mammon. It doesn't mean that you actually cut off her hand. It means she has to pay money. And so the Gemara now says, my lav is it not? That she couldn't save the situation in any other way. She had to do this. This is actually even considered to be a situation of a loss because they were attacking her husband. And apparently even in a situation of a loss of money, you're not allowed to take the law into your own hands. And the Gemara says, lo, no, she did have another means to save her husband, and so therefore, since there was another way, that's why she has to pay. But the Gemara says, but then what are you inferring? You're saying that if she's not able to save him any other way, then she'd be pater. So if so, Adatani Seif, instead of saying at the end of this brisa, it says she sends out her hand to exclude a shliach bezin. If a bezdin is, let's say, hitting someone on the authority of bezdin, so then he's not chayiv. That's what the brisa says. But you could have said a bigger chiddush, liflog v'lisni b'dida. You could have said even within her, even when you're talking about the woman, there are cases where she's pater. You could have said, when does she have to pay? When she could have done something else to save him. But if she couldn't have done anything else to save him, patura, then she'd be pater. That's what it should have said in the brisa, if that was the case. And the Gemara says, no, hachanami kamar, that's exactly what the brisa means. The brisa means to say, again, when do we say that she is chayiv to pay money, when she could have done something else? But if she couldn't have done anything else, the brisa means nasa yada kashliach bezdin. Her hand is no different than what somebody does on the authority of the bezdin, on an agent of the court, to patur, and she's going to be pater. And the Gemara continues to Hashma, coming here a proof from the following Mishnah. This is from a Mishnah in Bava Basra. Let's say a person owns a field, but there is a public path that is going through his field. So then he takes that path for himself and he gives them an alternate at the side of his field. So what he gave away, but he doesn't get back that original path. Now the public has two paths through his field. And so the Gemara asks, now if you're going to say a person is allowed to take the law into his own hands, linkot pazra v'leisav, let him take a stick and sit there on the original path and block people from using that path. And the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Zvid Mishmei de Rava. Rav Zvid says in the name of Rava, Gezeira shamiyitin lahem derech hakalson. It's a gezeira that maybe he's going to give them a more circuitous route. In other words, it means to say, really, he is allowed to take the law into his own hands and block that path, but we don't allow him to do that because we're afraid that the alternate path he gives them will be inconvenient. Rav Mesharji says, Benosin lahem derech hakalson. The Mishnah actually is talking about where he gave them a path that was inconvenient, and that's why he's not allowed to take the law into his own hands. But if he would have given them a good alternate, he really could take back that original path. Rav Ashi says, Kol min atzad, anytime he gives them a path that's at the side of his field, derech hakalson, that is considered a circuitous path. It's considered inconvenient because krovel lazeh or rechokel lazeh. It's closer for this guy, but it's farther away for that guy. And so the Gemara says, one second, if so, if you're saying that he's allowed to take the law technically into his own hands, why do we say that which he gave away, he's not able to get back? He should at least be able to get back what he gave away now. And so the Gemara says, Leimalu, he should be able to say to them, Shkolu didchu, take your original path, v'havu li didi, and give me back what I just gave you. And to that the Gemara says, Mishum de Rav Yehuda, the reason he can't get back what he now gave away is because of what Rav Yehuda says. The Yamar Rav Yehuda, because Rav Yehuda says, Meitzar shechziko bo rabim, once you have a Meitzar that's taken over by the public, this area that the public now uses for themselves, Asr lakalkalo, you're not allowed to ruin it, and that's the same principle that's applied over here. It essentially now belongs to the public. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here the following proof from a Brisa, Balabayas sheniach peh mitzad echad. Let's say a Balabayas leaves produce at the corner of his field for the poor on one side of his field, Ubo ani v'nadlu mitzad acher, but the poor people come, they take from the other side. The halach is zev is a peya. The halach is that both are considered peya. And so again the Gemara asks, if you say that a person is allowed to take the law into his own hands, why are they both considered peya? Linkot pizra v'leisav, again he should take a stick and he should stand by that which he's not giving permission. He should stop people from taking it. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava says, what does it mean that both sides are considered peya? That's only lepotra min hamaiser, that's only in terms of exempting the produce from meiser. Kedetani, as we learned in a brisa, hamafker is karma, if somebody makes his vineyard ownerless, v'hishkin baboker v'tzaro, and then he gets up early in the morning before anyone else gets there, and he starts harvesting from that vineyard. Chayiv b'peret u'va'olos u'v'shicha u'v'peya. It's still going to be chayiv in peret, olos, shicha, and peya, again, which is the produce, the various kinds of produce that are given to the poor. U'pater min ha'maiser, but it will be exempt from maiser, and the same is true over here. It's going to be considered peya only in the sense that it is exempt from maiser. And Rashi explains, lepotrum and amaiser, we just mean to say that it's peya, that it's potter from maiser. Diaf peya hanisheres hefker chashiva, meaning even the peya that's left is considered to be hefker. V'afagav denakad la'iu, even though he himself is now taking it back for himself, peturim imaiser, it's still going to be considered peya in the sense that it's potter from maiser. And then again, we bring this proof from a brisa which says that if he gets up early in the morning and takes it for himself, so chayiv b'peret u'va'olos. In that particular case, it's chayiv in terms of peret and olos. Afagav de hefker potter mi peya, even though usually ownerless produce is considered potter from peya, to tanan kol shu ochel v'nishmar chayiv b'maiser v'peya, because again it has to be something that's protected, that's not ownerless. Afilu hachi, but nevertheless in this case, ki hai hefker chayiv b'chol hani. In this situation where he made it hefker, but then he got up early in the morning to take it for himself, it's still going to be chayiv in all these gifts to the poor. Like we'll say later on, it says tazov an extra time. That's where we learn it out from. And Rashi continues, nevertheless, even though there's a chiyuv in peret and olalos, etc., but it still will be considered hefker enough to be pater from meiser, to lo chsib be tazov yisera, because there you don't have the extra tazov. Alma hefker koldu pater mi meiser. You see that even a small amount, so to speak, of hefker is pater from meiser. Like we said, it has to be ochel v'nishmor. It has to be something that is guarded to be chayiv in meiser. And so therefore the same is true over here. In this particular case, we're going to say that it's considered peya only in the sense that it's pater from meiser. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Nishbura kado b'Rosh Hashanah, if somebody's jug breaks in Rosh Hashanah, v'huchlak echad b'mayim o shalaka b'charosis, and somebody slips on the water from that jug, or they get injured from the shards of that jug, chayiv, so the person who dropped the jug, who broke the jug in Rosh Hashanah, is going to be chayiv. Rabbi Yehuda says, b'miskavin chayiv, if he did it with intent, then he's chayiv. Be'eno miskavin potter, but if he had no intent, then he is potter. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Rav Yehuda says, that Rav says, Lo shanu ela shetinfu kelev b'mayim. This is only true. This halach is only taught in a situation where his garments became dirty because of the water. Rashi says, Ela shetinfu kelev b'mayim, the Rav muki l'masnisin, kishalo hifker es meimav. Rav holds that the Mishnah is talking about a case where the person did not make the water ownerless. Hilgach nimsa shenizoko kelev shelzeh b'memono shelzeh. So it comes out that this person's garments are being damaged by this other person's mammon. V'havik kishoro, it's the same thing as being damaged by his ox. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ches Amud Beis.